Welcome to the Traitors podcast. My name's Matthew. I'm a writer working in TV development, and I am 100% faithful. Promise. The Trader features deep dives into every episode of the multi-award winning hit TV competition series, The Traitors, as well as interviews with contestants from the shows. This is a standalone, bonus, magical, unique episode of The Trader because the discussion will be devoted to the entire season of The Traitors New Zealand. Towards the end, I'll also talk to my co-host a little about their overall thoughts on The Traitors Australia Season 2 and the freshly announced celebrity cast of The Traitors US Season 2 and the upcoming Traitors Canada cast. Speaking of my host, let's go ahead and meet him. My host is a returning guest to the podcast. It's Joe Usher. Joe has hosted previous episodes with me on the Traitors US and Traitors Australia Seasons 1 and 2, and he's back for more. Joe's a huge Traitors fan, obviously. He is a fan of pop culture, wrestling, X-Men, and girl groups. Joe, welcome back. I was going to say, how you going? But I don't know if they say that in New Zealand. So, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you. I'm doing very, very, very good. I'm very
Excellent.
excited indeed.
I know you've got lots of thoughts to talk about, so we've got so much content
Mhm.
today. We're going to talk about New Zealand mostly, but we're also going to talk a little bit about Australia, US, Canada, so much to do. And of course, we're going to play the Trader Traitor. So our goal throughout the episode from here on in is to tell a lie to one another. The lie has to be a fabrication or a made-up fact. It can be big or small, about the traitors, or it could be about ourselves. It could be about anything at all. For example, Joe could tell me that a new season of The Traitors Liverpool has been announced, and it will be hosted by the Vivian and Stephen Graham. However, Joe's lie can't be a fake opinion, like saying that he thinks or feels there should be no more Traitors franchises because, quite frankly, we've had enough. Obviously, he would never say that. At the end of
Okay.
the episode, we'll then put our traitor hunting skills to the test and decide what we thought the other person's lie was. Joe, are you ready to play the Trader Traitor?
Yep.
In that case, our game of the Trader Traitor begins now. So we're going to talk all about the Traitors New Zealand. Why don't I put in the theme tune that we always have right here? And it goes. Just a heads up here that throughout the episode there are a lot of spoilers for other seasons of The Traitors, as Joe and I discuss The Traitors UK, US, and both seasons of Australia, including who wins those seasons. So keep listening at your own peril. Okay, we have various things to talk about. We're going to take it step by step. First of all, this is something that you reminded me of, Joe, and it makes sense to talk about it immediately. In the very first episode of Traitors New Zealand, a contestant leaves immediately with $10,000. What did you make of this, Joe?
So it was very, because when I watched it, I remember watching it thinking, I actually don't understand what they're going on about. And in the end, I was like, imagine if that, because there was a few of them that were going to go for that money. But imagine if all of the cash just ran and went off. I thought the show must be shitting itself thinking, where have all of these people gone? Because I thought when he took it, he was bringing it back to add to the prize funds. But when he went off in the
Um,
car, it was I didn't feel it was explained as much, but then I thought the person who went, it was a shame because I'd have liked to have seen how a game player plays this game.
yeah, so the guy is called Sam Johnston. He was a gamer, and I kind of like you. It's not that I misunderstood what was happening, but I kind of underestimated what was happening. So I thought, oh, surely they're not actually going to just invite someone to leave. Like that can't be it. So I thought they'll bring him back later. We'll think
Mhm.
he's gone and actually returns, but he doesn't. He just runs, takes
When
$10,000 and goes. It's also funny that his name is Sam. Maybe there's just too many Sams in the Traitors now that they've decided no more. Um, I I've talked about this before in the podcast. I absolutely would have done what Sam did. To be honest, I think if they said there are $10,000 sitting over there, if you can run and get them, you can have them. I would have weighed up. Am I likely to win this show? Statistically, probably not. I think I can run okay. No one else is doing it yet. Especially if I looked around and no one else had immediately ran for it. I think after a few seconds I would have just gone. What would you have done?
it's tough, isn't it? I mean, I don't, do you know what? A part of me goes, I'd go, but then I think that host would have had I had to shit myself and speak to me like that's why I just stood there terrified. You think they were gonna die the way he was like, "You've let me down." I'm like, what? But no, I don't know. It is when I'm looking at it now and I'm thinking that lineup was so strong. Like, it was full of big. They were actually more big names, but I I actually don't know how far he would have got if he hadn't if he'd stayed. I actually can't picture in my head how far he'd have gone because he could have been a gamer, but yeah, he only does esports, so I don't know how good that would have came into this because say you're just sitting in chair playing games where you get paid millions for these tournaments. So I don't know, but it was interesting and did he make the right decision? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard because we all know in hindsight now, so it's hard to say. But it is weird he didn't come back.
Yeah, it is. And it's like you say, it's we'll never know what he would have been like as a game player. We'll never get to see it, which is on one I was gonna say it's a shame. It's probably not a shame for him. He's probably quite happy with his $10,000, considering that the prize fund isn't really that much at the end of this. So
Yeah.
$10,000 is quite a big chunk of that, relatively. The next thing I wanted to talk about was something quite broad, something quite general about this season, and it's the setting of the Traitors New Zealand and this sort of aesthetic, like the look of it, the way that it just visually appears on screen. I've got some quite harsh thoughts on it. I'll tell you my harsh thoughts, and then you can tell me if I'm being too
Mhm.
nasty. My harsh thoughts are a few things. Well, you can tell this from the prize fund because it's $70,000, 70,000 New Zealand dollars, which doesn't seem as much as other franchises. And I think that gives you a clue straight away. They obviously don't have an enormous budget. And I mean, New Zealand's not a huge country in terms of population.
Mhm.
So they don't have millions of dollars to spend on this. And I feel like you can kind of tell that. I think I've already said this to you before, Joe, but the banishment room itself is giving me America's Next Top Model season one. It's giving me hotel room with just like some black curtains hiding the wall. Like it's clearly just a conference room in a hotel. And they've been like, oh, this doesn't look very dramatic. Let's just put up some black curtains everywhere. Which is fine, but it's a shame. It's just a shame because we've seen the UK and US versions in Ardros Castle in the Highlands, and it's such a beautiful old building. To then just go to a room with some black curtains on the walls is a bit of a shame. What do you think about like the setting?
Oh God, it wasn't. It was weird because it felt like to me, it felt like there were two buildings. That main building where the thingies felt like a villain in Spain. They get run out with family or friends. Then they go into the banishment room, which to me was a massive wine as walking through the wine. Because I've never seen so much wine in a show in my life when it has to do with thingy. But yeah, it felt like they were two completely different buildings in a weird way. Like it probably was part of the complex, but it had the America's Next Top Model, Drag Race season one filter. I do agree. It was very, even if you come off Australia, which has a budget with that beautiful hotel, this was just like a holiday villa feeling. I do feel the show's getting more Cluedo like, and
Yeah,
it feels like something you'd see on a Cluedo board game or something.
Yeah,
which maybe that's what, because it did feel like at times this setting in the atmosphere, it felt more like they were treating it like a game, which in other franchises, I think people forget. And like you say, the prize funds just calculates that it's 33,000 in our money. So
yeah,
would I fight and want to win that or take 10 grand? How I know that I'd probably take 10 grand and go
yeah,
because it's not. I mean, it's worth it, again for people who've never had it. It probably is worth it. But when you look at the international franchises, I'd cry
yeah.
if I knew getting it. But not celebs that they spent it all on them being contestants.
That's true. Yeah, that actually I never thought of that. That I suppose yeah, this has got a sort of half celebrity cast, so I'm assuming they've all been paid a fee of some sort to be here. Like I doubt they've just come along. And actually, this is something I noticed only in the final episode, and we'll get to the finale later. But I don't know if maybe I missed this throughout the series, and you might correct me. In the finale, someone mentioned, I think it's one of the players, one of the finalists who is a celebrity, it might be Brooke, says something about wanting to win the money for charity. And that was the first time I heard any of them, the celebrities saying that. So that made me feel a bit better. I thought, oh, okay, the celebrities are doing this to donate. Well, actually, I thought they're either all competing to donate to a charity or Brooke, if it was Brooke who said that, I think it might have been,
It
or
was.
he's just chosen. He's just like volunteering to say this is what I am going to do with the money. I don't know. But anyway, the point was you were right. I guess they have to pay these celebrities a fee, so that takes up some level of budget.
And these aren't just, I've looked into this, and these aren't like just social media celebrities. Like these are actual singers, business people, TV broadcasters. Like
Yeah,
that is quite. Whereas Australian, I don't think they were celebs in the same aspect of these. These felt like celebrities, and they all knew each other, which ruins it for me sometimes.
yeah, that was something that came up a lot. That people they would say, "Oh, I know you already. I know you outside of this," and they would even in their interviews they would say, "Oh, I know this person really well outside, but maybe I shouldn't trust them in the game." So that was kind of a weird dynamic that didn't bother me that much, but I did think it ruined a bit of the illusion.
Well, it's and I even think the charity thing, like it's a nice thing, but then what worries me with as soon as you bring charity in, people are automatically not going to vote for you because it's they'll think, well, they're doing something good, so why don't they win it? And it's like, but it's taking the whole element of this game out of it.
Hmm.
This isn't best friends traitors, like best friend race. This is everyone for themselves. So either make your celebs people that aren't super big, or just scrap the idea entirely. And I think in this country, maybe next season, if they have one, do a civilian season.
Yeah. A couple of final points on the sort of look and the budget maybe is the I guess we've covered this, but the hotel, I mean, it looks like a beautiful building. It looks like a
That's
really nice
lovely.
place. Like if someone wants to send me there on holiday, I'm not complaining.
I was going to
Um,
say, yeah,
but,
okay.
but it is quite it's like quite contemporary. So it looks like a very modern, like really, really lovely, stylish hotel. But that didn't then feel like it suited like the sort of murder mystery gothic atmosphere of the game. So I felt like they tried to set decorate it just with some like random old objects.
And very small, very
Yeah,
small. There wasn't many places where you could literally hide and chat about someone. It was basically you within an ear,
yeah,
like you could literally whisper in their ear.
yeah. And something else I noticed this more in the sort of later challenges, I think, is is again just the you could quite clearly tell there wasn't lots of money left to spend on like missions and like expensive props. So like when they I can't remember the episode. It was definitely in the second half of the season. There was this kidnap mission. So some of the players were kidnapped and taken off to this kind of like boathouse, and the other players are in cars and they have to find them. In the house where the kidnappees were, they just had like clues printed, like just clearly printed in like Arial font on like a bit of A4 paper, like cut up with some scissors. Like I was just seeing some runner on the show, someone just been like, get a printer, print out some clues, cut them up and shove them on that wall. Like, it looked very last minute. Even in the laser mission, when they had the objects that they had to pick up, they just had these like handwritten price tags on them. I just thought this looks so cheap. Like, could
It's
no one have
cheap.
just printed those on some nice card or something?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It was. I do think the entire show was like not just because I think the second probably was grand. That main bit was grandest. But like you say, I think and maybe this might make them think maybe next time to keep a budget, we might have to just get, as I say, less known. Because I now I'm thinking of it, I'm like they must have used the budget on them contestants. Some
Yeah.
of them were a waste in a lot of ways. But and I'll get on to it in a minute on who I think is the most wasteful contestant they've ever had.
I think I know
But
what you're going to say.
yeah, but we're gonna get on that topic in a minute. But yeah, it's just like, yeah, maybe just don't waste your money on someone who's just useless at this game.
I think that might, unless I'm wrong, that might neatly lead us into our next topic, which
Mhm.
is a Traitors. Well, it's a Traitors first in terms of English speaking versions of the show, in that the players managed to banish a traitor in the first episode. The first banishment room, they immediately find a traitor and get rid of her. Is Lauren the person that you were referring to, Joe?
Yeah,
So, yeah, Lauren, poor I don't even know it was Lauren, one of the celebrities. What's
she
her?
was. I think she's on Strictly Come Dancing in New Zealand. I think
Okay,
she's
okay.
third ones.
Oh, I remember she was a dancer. Yeah.
But they didn't say, which I'm guessing maybe it's
Okay.
like maybe the prize one being cheap could because it's like their version of the BBC. Because I actually noticed they never said she was a Dancing with the Stars contestant, which is something years happily put.
Yeah. Uh, what? Why do you think Lauren was caught out immediately? How did they know in episode one that she was a traitor?
Right, I don't know whether you picked up on this, but there's a few times I think they referenced the Australian season one.
Okay.
And I think they referenced Alex a few times because I think that's how she was playing it. Be quiet. Because, I mean, that was the most unconvincingly I can do good as a traitor because he did them interviews, which was nice to see them come back.
Hmm.
When he sat with them and went, would you want to be a traitor? Would you like to be faithful? And then she said it, and I thought, oh, she looks like nerves. You can feel the nerves as she's saying it. So I'm like, maybe the producers are like, look, we need a celeb as a traitor who's a known figure. She's probably one of the biggest because I'm sorry, she was useless. Like that money on that, like again, I almost think as a faithful she would have been bad because she'd have been, in my opinion, I think she'd have played the same game. Again, this isn't on her. This is just on the gameplay. I'm not saying she's useless as a person. She actually seems like a very nice person. I just think she went in too deep. But I almost think I don't think she just stood a chance because she was with the two misogynists, and I think
Well,
they just thrown her right into that bus.
yeah, that's misogyny is something very interesting that I had made a note of as well. Just purely, well, I'll mention that in a second. But firstly, I agree with you that I think Lauren. I mean, we only got to see her for one episode, so I didn't get a great
Yeah,
idea of who she was. But my impression in
mm-hmm.
that one episode was she was a very nice person and very
Yeah,
sort of quiet and softly spoken. So I think she probably just wasn't prepared for how hard you have to lie, like how
yeah,
convincing you have to be. And something about her at the banishment room, especially, didn't feel that natural. Like I just got the impression you could tell she was struggling to hide
yeah.
something, and maybe it was just a bit beyond her. But yeah, I noticed that almost always in the Traitors, Australia season one is an exception to this because the first
Yeah.
person it was Jack. Um, Almost always a woman is the first person banished. Uh, is that sort of what you were referring to, or
I mean, I think that now you said that, I don't know. But I think again, she was too in over the head, but I do think she tried to play it like Alex did. And for anyone going in the show in the future, you can never play Alex's game ever again. You won't, it won't work. The only reason it worked for her is because it was the first ever show, English version that was made, and she just played a blinder. But you can't be too quiet. You've almost got to be not too forceful, and you can't be too quiet.
Yeah.
So you've got to almost coast in this, like in Drag Race, and just hope you get in.
And after Lauren is gone, then something we get a fair few recruitments in this season. So that's sort of the next topic that we're going to talk about is the recruited traitors throughout New Zealand. So we've got Brooke, who is recruited. We have Robbie, and then eventually we have Colin. And they're all quite interested in their own way. Brooke, first of all, manages to then make it all the way to the finale. As does Colin, I suppose, although he's recruited really, really late on, so it's not much of a surprise. I think there's a lot to say about Robbie, so we'll definitely come back to her. But it's funny that they recruit by episode 4, which felt, I mean there only are like 10 episodes, but it felt like such an early recruitment. But I guess they realize this group of faithful are pretty good, and they get a traitor out immediately. So maybe production were like, "Oh God, we need to make sure we've got enough traitors to keep this going."
I was going to mention that actually. I think production would have been fucking few having them out this early because you had it out, and then you had with the radio presenter guy out within I think 2 episodes apart. So I imagine production were like, these are 2 of the biggest names that we've put in, and they are crap.
It's
so
funny that you said the radio presenter guy, because I also can't remember his name, and I just wrote down Australian Chris Evans, because not Chris Evans, the Marvel star, by the way, Chris Evans,
no, Chris,
the like UK DJ.
Billy Piper's ex-husband.
Yes. So I couldn't remember his name, so I just was like Australian Chris Evans. That'll do.
So I imagine the production were like, shit, this is going downhill quicker than ever. Maybe this makes them think maybe next season we'll just do civilians because we wasted our money.
I think they'd be quite worried, yeah. And also by episode 4, the traitors are 3 men, and even that's quite odd. It just feels a bit unexpected or unusual.
There is something I've just remembered actually. The 3 traits they chose was celebrities. There was not a civilian person in that group.
Yeah,
and I wondered if you swapped Lauren for like
Julia
Brody
or Brody. I think
Brody would be fantastic. I'll get on that in a bit because I think that was I don't know what they were thinking, but I almost think. But then Brody was a TV star, so maybe Robin would have been, because I'm trying to think of the women who was not. I mean, Julia would have been a good one. Julia and Robin, because they were the only 2 that were civilians. The rest were all celebs.
There was, is it Vanda? Is that the lady's name?
Oh, she's a crime writer. She's
a crime writer.
But you could have, because as much as I think writers are celebs in their own right, there's different. I don't think that they're not the same as to me they always get back, and I kind of want to see some writers in occasion now. But Justine would have been good, the comedian.
I loved her.
I thought she was fantastic.
She was great.
So funny. But yeah, I think maybe not using celebs, but then you've only got 2 women picked from. One of them we'll get onto in a bit. And Julia would have been interesting because she was a former police officer.
Yes. So we mentioned Robbie briefly, and I said we would come back to her. So now's the time. I feel Robbie was so hard done by, and so Robbie gets recruited sort of about halfway through the season. But before she was recruited, she was sort of always a target throughout the whole season. And I can't figure out why. They always were sort of picking on her. They always were having a go at her because they thought she was a traitor. And I couldn't ever figure out why they were so hard on her. And then the horrible thing is that she then gets recruited. And it's pretty obvious to us as viewers why they're recruiting her, because they're just going to immediately get rid of her. And even Robbie realised that. So it's actually in episode 6, she asks them, and at that point it's Dan and Brooke who are the traitors. They recruit her, and she immediately asks them in the Traitors Tower, have I been brought in just to be banished? And every time they show us that clip, they just cut it off. They cut right there, and we don't ever see what Brooke and Dan, how they respond to that. I don't know how they explained themselves out of it or how they lied to her. But yeah, they did. She knew why she'd been recruited, and then they did it. The very next episode, they immediately get rid of her. So everybody else thinks, haha, you were a traitor all along. We were right. And I just felt so bad for her. I thought, she wasn't. Like, she only just became a traitor. What do you think about Robbie's treatment?
Human, icon woman, needs to be an all-star. Jackie Tyler from Up to Do. Amazing. Love Robbie. Just, I've never been so angry at how a contestant was treated. From the minute she told Brooke that she was a hairdresser, then he looked at her and went, "Oh, that all you do?" And I'm like, "Easy for you to say, Sean, a multi-millionaire. What, she's got 4 kids." So at the minute when he said that, I thought, I really don't like you whatsoever, because there's a class divide already.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, she was just so, she's someone I'd probably have been drawn to because she was a nice person. I like the drink thing annoyed me because it was like this. You felt like, and even she says it, they're just doing it because everyone is doing it. Some of these people don't really feel that way. They're just doing it because I'm an easy target. And it's like, I looked at it and I felt it didn't feel like it was fun. It felt a bit like they were all picking on it. And I do think her job had something to do with it. Because as soon as she said she was an hairdresser, I thought that you just felt, again, especially from Brooke and that lot, they were a bit like, oh. And even when they were talking about recruiting, and I thought, the way they were talking about it, you think she was like a bit of muck on the shit. I was like, well, give us some respect. Like, and then, like you say, they cut it off, which again with the traitors, I get annoyed at that. And it's annoying that they didn't even go back and show us what they said to her.
Yeah.
But then, again, iconic player, she does the winkers there. And then it made me think, because you've discussed this a few times, how do they stop it? But then I want them to say, I am a traitor, but I was recruited.
You've picked up on exactly what I wanted to talk about. That first of all, yeah, she at the banishment table when it's basically her first banishment as a traitor, and then she immediately gets kicked out. She has that moment. She's sitting beside Dan. He's her fellow traitor, and he instantly turns on her and backstabs her. And she does that thing where she just stares at him and winks, so that everybody can see it. And it's sorry, this is full of spoilers for other seasons, but so if you don't want to hear them, don't listen. It's so UK season 1. It's so Kieran parting gift, all that stuff. So she's very clearly, she wants everybody else to see it. That's her way of being really annoyed and telling the others, by the way, he's a traitor. And it's exactly like you said. I thought this is what I think is an inevitable problem in this game. How do producers stop the players from doing that? Like, and it's since I started watching the Traitors UK at the end of last year, it was the main question I had when I was thinking about how this game works. Was how do they stop a player who's a traitor from being banished and then just telling everybody else? And I know it's very unlikely, but it's not impossible. And if a traitor's banished, stands up, is really angry about being banished, I don't know what's to stop them from just saying, by the way, it's him, and her. Like, it would absolutely ruin the filming process. The production company would be having a nightmare if that happened. It would ruin everything. Unless the other traitors played it off and said, oh, they were just lying. I'm not, they would have to defend. It would be so difficult. So I don't know how they do stop that other than, sorry, on you go.
It's okay, sorry. You've got Ari in the US as well that was trying to guide them and say, look, Siri is playing this game, but he didn't outwardly say. I kind of think with Robin, even if she did, I'm almost like, I don't care. She was dogged on from the minute she set foot in that game, and I'm like, it kind of shows. And I wondered if they let her do it because it's like, look, she's not a thick player. She's clever. So she could have just took that and not. It was the most obvious wink I've ever seen. She didn't even hide subtlety.
I felt so bad for Robbie that emotionally I didn't mind that she did it because I thought, quite right, you've been treated pretty poorly by these guys. But yeah, I've been trying to think of, how do they stop this from happening? And I've spoken about this on the podcast before with David Bloomberg. And David, who's a reality TV guru, connoisseur, expert, And David has suggested that maybe it's something that has to be written into contracts that if you're chosen as a traitor and you spoil it by telling other, giving away either through your words or through very obvious body language, you will be not invited back for any promotional that you won't be invited to the big launch party. We won't do interviews with you. We'll edit you out the show within an inch of your life. So they could place all these sort of restrictions on players and say, if you ruin the game by doing this, here are all the things that we're going to do to you, and you're going to have to agree to that. Or the alternative is to completely change the way banishment works and not give the players an opportunity to ruin, they not give traitors an opportunity to reveal who the other traitors are by doing something like anonymous votes, like so they don't show each other and it's sitting around a table. They something like Big Brother. They just get called to the diary room and then told you've been evicted, you're out. So they don't even get to see the other players to give them any clues. I guess that leads on to really the next big thing. Well, I was going to talk about how good the faithful are, but we've probably kind of covered that. That I mean, compared to, and again, spoilers ahead, if you've watched Australia season 2, the cast of New Zealand differ an awful lot because this is a good set of faithful. Good in terms of they have good traders. They're really good at finding traitors. So by the finale, the faithful of New Zealand have already found 4 traitors and banished them. They found Lauren, they found Australian Chris Evans, Robbie, and Dan. By the finale in Australia season 2, they have found 1 traitor. And the only reason they found that 1 traitor is because a fellow traitor told everybody else who they were, basically. So why do you think this group of faithful were so good at finding traitors?
I think, I mean, again, there's times they still royally messed up, but the majority of the time, I think it's just they did what Australia should have done. As soon as something's wrong or not right, go on it. And like Tom says in the UK season, support Ivan. If I'm wrong, get rid of me. And I think that almost has to be like a new rule for the show. Like almost sacrifice stuff that goes wrong. But they all did it and it pays off.
Yeah, I think you're
and
right.
I wonder if they all know, again, with the celebs being the traitors and these people knowing each other outside the world, maybe and this is something that was mentioned a lot of times, like before Brooke was brought in, he was going, well, Dan's a traitor because I know him, and the radio guy was like, I'd never have met my wife because of you, and I'm like, well, I really don't care. Like, I don't care about stuff. But again, this is the only each other, so I'm like, maybe this could be part of it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Several of the cast members knew one another and therefore were able to recognize they're behaving differently from the way that I know them outside of this. That makes me think something funny's going on here. So that's a huge part of it. And I agree with the first thing you said as well. I think this group of faithfuls often made up their minds kind of before they went into the banishment and then just stuck to it. I think if something very obviously traitorish happened, they were pretty good at talking about it with one another and not letting go of it. So they would get to banishment and they would say, I'm sorry, you did this thing the other day and I can't stop thinking about it, so I'm going to vote for you tonight. Whereas in Australia, Sam could literally say to them all, by the way, I'm a traitor. They would walk into the banishment room and have amnesia and completely forget what had happened and then all change their minds at the last minute.
I mean, also, I forgot to mention there was a woman at the beginning who was banished. She was a psychic. And she was the other girl that wasn't a celebrity. And she actually was bang on as well on, I think, the radio guy and Dan. And I think she was feeling Lawrence, so she actually had all 3 of them names.
Yeah.
So she was like the good clown.
Forgot.
I've literally just remembered her in the head, and I was like, she could have been a good traitor, actually. I think she could have been quite a fun traitor to watch as well. Because she wasn't like Chloe, she was more I think to me, she was more a spirit trust. I don't think she was actually a psychic.
And just in case anyone hasn't seen Australia. So Chloe was a contestant in season one of Australia, and she was clairvoyant and was a brilliant TV character. She was absolutely brilliant casting because she was very unpredictable, did some wild stuff, created lots of conversations, and I think probably annoyed a lot of the cast. So I just love that you said this is good, Chloe.
And also, if you want to hear my thoughts on Chloe, I am on that episode.
Oh, of course. You're my co-host on that episode.
So yeah, people can hear my thoughts on Chloe. But this girl, I don't know her name, but she would have been, I think she'd have been good as a traitor because I completely forgot about her. I just thought of that.
Yeah, it's a shame that she was gone so early.
But again, I think when you're coming in with this psychic thing, it's going to make people think, right, get rid of them because
Yes.
they could be quite clever.
Yeah, yeah.
But no, I think overall, I think, as I say, this group of faithfuls made the Australian faithfuls. Oh, like I would have loved to have seen the New Zealand faithfuls invade Australia and see how they'd have done that game because Stan would not last 5 seconds.
Yes. We're going to talk about the finale of New Zealand now, and this is I I have more notes just on the finale than I do on all of our other points so far combined. I loved the finale of this. I found it
Yeah,
really exciting, great fun. I had so many thoughts. We're going to talk about a bit about the mission in the finale. We're going to talk about the fire pit. I want to talk a little bit about Sam, the contestant, individually. So
yeah,
let's begin at the start of the finale. We go into the final episode with two traitors, three faithful, which. And I couldn't help. It's funny because Traitors New Zealand and Traitors Australia season two were kind of broadcasting basically at the same time. So I was switching between both of them. So I can't help but make comparisons. For the finale of Australia season two, it wasn't, the numbers weren't that different. It was three traitors, two faithful. So it was just sort of the opposite. But just feels so different. Like I felt at the start of the New Zealand finale, I thought the faithful were probably going to do a pretty good job. I didn't think the traitors were going to get away with it. Uh, let's talk about this mission. The mission in the finale is fascinating and insane. So they have this mission where they take the remaining players and they are all taken away on their own and they are given their own individual tasks to complete. And they're told that if four out of the five of you complete this task, you'll win, I think it's like $12,000 maybe. If fewer than four of you out of the five complete it, you'll all fail. So you're on your own. You don't know what the other players are going to do. So the pressure's on you to complete this mission that you're about to be given. The level of difficulty of challenges is on such a huge spectrum. So Julia is tasked with something that I think you would do on like a spa weekend. She's asked to go into a cryogenic chamber for a few minutes, and just be cold for a while. I would have been like, okay, where's the challenge? Like I think we were supposed to think it was going to be really, oh my God, she's going to be like so cold, her limbs are going to fall off. But I was like, if this is a thing that exists in some facility where members of the public can go and do it can't be dangerous. Like, it can't be that bad. So she didn't seem like she had much of a challenge there.
I mean, it's hot there, so it's not a challenge. If anything, she's getting it back. Like that was the first thing I thought when I seen it. I was like, it's boiling because all they have worn is shorts and t-shirts and mini skirts, which she wore on that laser challenge, which was ridiculous and iconic. But I just thought, well, what like is she a producer's daughter or something? Because I was like, that was pathetic. Like anyone, and I'm sorry if it's about 90 degrees out there, I'd jump in there. That's
Yeah,
probably the most. I mean, put it this way: if we were to do it in the UK, I would like to see a hot sauna where you probably couldn't. Whereas that wasn't even like cryogenically cold. I was thinking it'd be like when you watch Dance with Zac Efron and they get in that cold bath and you think that's freezing. That would have been more impressive.
Yeah, like dunk her in some ice, like right under the water. Or I thought it would be an entire chamber where your whole body's
Yeah,
in it. She just stands with her head like poking out, like having a great time.
I know that.
So that was strange. Then let's go through them. Sam's mission is
Oh,
to get this hideous haircut. So he's got to get this monk haircut. And he does it because he's a good sport and he wants to win the money. And you know, hair his hair will grow back, and it's a very temporary thing, and he's just going to look a bit silly for a while, but it's not really the end of the world. I sort of thought so he does it and he gets his haircut. It's a bit humiliating. I mean, they make him sit then like at the round table with his insane new. I just kept thinking if it was me, I would have done it. I would have been like, okay, fine, I'll do it. But when we get back to the hotel, can someone give me some fucking clippers, like to just finish it off? Like, can some like don't make me sit for the rest of the show with this stupid haircut? Like, can I just?
oh.
I would have just found some scissors in a kitchen somewhere, but like I'll just cut the rest off so I don't look like a complete weirdo. But no, I'm not calling monks weirdos. Don't get offended. Don't write to me.
No, I've met a monk in Thailand. They're fantastic people. Been blessed by one. Um, but no, I just thought that was the cruelest. I mean, I also wonder how are these tasks picked?
Well, actually, funny you say
Because
that.
I can't remember.
How are they? Do you mean how are they assigned to different players, or
How are
just
they
how do they come
assigned?
up with it?
Yeah, how would these? Because I thought Colin would have been better with the haircut one.
Oh, okay. Well, I see what you mean because he has long hair.
He's very
I
vain.
think. Well, Colin says briefly. I don't. I don't know if it's a religious thing or not. He just says
Oh,
just because he mentions he says I wouldn't cut my hair, and I don't know if he just means because it's just a stylish thing or if there was some other actual fundamental reason for that. But he says I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't cut my hair. So I wonder if the producers knew that about him and just were like, "There's no point in giving him that. He's never going to do it." Next up, I'm going to talk about these two together. Colin and Brooke are given kind of like I'm a celebrity style challenges. So Colin has to eat some like gross, well, to me, gross, disgusting thing. I can't remember what it is. And Brooke has to get in a bath and then just have like maggots and cockroaches poured on him. Uh, well, I'm vegan, so I wouldn't eat the meat thing. I mean, I just instantly would be like, I'm not going to do that. I'm telling you right now, goodbye. Um, we've lost the money. That just wouldn't even be a question for me. The maggots and cockroaches. Brooke is having a full-on meltdown about. Like he's clearly phobic. Like he really is like literally screaming. I mean, I kind of did think like calm down a bit, but like he was worried about them going up his nose, and I thought, and his mouth, and I thought, well, the more you scream, like the worse you're going to make it. Just sit still. It's unbearable, but just sit still and don't make a sound. I'm going to go on a bit of a. I'm going to go on my soapbox here. This is just a personal thing. I don't watch I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. I've never watched it, and I never will. I know people are going to be like, calm down, Matthew, get a life. I just ethically am not into TV shows using animals in a really gross, horrible way for entertainment. Okay. Even if it's insects and bugs and people think, Matthew, that doesn't count, calm down. I just not here for like, let's just pour a bunch of creatures in a bath and some of them will probably get squished and killed and then we'll all laugh at it. So for me, I just don't find it entertaining and I don't like it. What do you think of these two missions?
about a very good shock trial. Um, I did enjoy. I think Colin was probably the most mentally prepared.
Yeah, so calm.
So calm. Brooke, I was ecstatic to see him be tortured because I thought you've done this at half of the bloody players without any problem. Just for Robbie. Get him on all stars. Um, but no, I think for me it was just nice to see him get a bit of comeuppance because I thought the way you treated everyone was just again, it's that line of being super. It's almost bringing personal into it, and it's like this is a game, and I think even Traitors forget. But no, it was fun to watch, and yeah, Collins. I mean, I used to watch. I dip in and out of Amsterdam because I'm sick of it now. But yeah, it was just like, I mean, I don't know with the eyeballs
I
because
think
I
one of
actually
them
couldn't
could have
watch
been,
it. It
yeah.
made me feel physically sick. But it was probably I think it was interesting how it was all different challenges for different psychological sides. So Sam's was more, I think, I mean, I'd have shaved that off as soon as I got back. I wouldn't have kept that in. He looked like a rice. So in a way, that was more if you're conscious about how you are, which I think Sam is. It was a bit like, well, I don't know whether he was, but there was times I thought he was a bit self-conscious in himself at times, and he needed the
Yeah, a
confidence. And I'm
bit,
like,
yeah.
well, that knocks your confidence massively. Collins, again, he was then, Julius was a walk in the park. And I'd say with Brooks, it was very, what's the word? Just, I think he just made a bigger deal than what it was, really. And what did Anna say?
So Anna was the most outrageous one because Anna was asked to get a tattoo of the Traitors logo. And funnily enough, I mean, I thought this was wild no matter what, but just on a really recent episode, uh, Stephen, who was a co-host for episode 8, I think, Stephen Ripley, Stephen talked to me about one of the Dutch versions of the show, and he described that this was a mission. So New Zealand have obviously borrowed this from the Dutch version, because when Stephen told me this on that episode, I thought it was his lie for the game. I thought that he was making this up, that a contestant had been asked to get a tattoo, but it was real. So they did it for New Zealand as well. They asked Anna to go and get a huge tattoo of the Traitors logo. Thank God she didn't do it. Um, I it's wild that they would put. I actually have a. Again, I don't want to get in my high horse, but I think it's a little bit shady of them to put someone in that position because, like, I know they can say no, and she did say no. She was just like, "I'm not doing it." But I think when you're like propositioning someone with $12,000 and putting psychological pressure on someone, I don't know. I think that's a bit of dodgy area, and there is no way that in the UK the BBC would ever use this as a mission.
No.
Absolutely not. So, like, I just know UK BBC encourage someone to get a permanent tattoo for a game show. Not going to happen.
I
What do you
mean,
think about the tattoo challenge?
it was interesting. So I did think, could it be, do you remember one of the kids ones that you got as a kids where you put it on the heel
Yeah, a
top?
little transfer.
I did wonder if, because I remember the one Holland episode I've watched where I think I've discussed that challenge with you, where they were all in the coffin, but they weren't buried alive, they were just on the ground.
Yeah,
So I did think maybe they're playing tricks on her and it is just a peel off one, and they're just telling her it's real. And good on her for saying no. I mean, would I have done it? I mean, they do it on a show called Dragula, which is like a drag race alternative, and they have our contestants get tattoos. Um, so yeah, that is quite. It has happened before. But again, I think with that show, I'm guessing they might know beforehand.
hmm
So they'll have signed waivers, whereas she probably didn't even know this was going to happen. Because again, you don't know who's getting to the final of this show.
yeah, yeah.
And it makes me think, would the chances have been different based on who was amazing?
Perhaps, yeah. Just a final note on that mission is again, Brooke getting in the bath in the middle of like a field with some guy just pours bugs out a bucket was also screaming budget to me. I was just like, wow,
Yeah.
this cost a few pounds to hire this guy from like a zoo or whoever he is. So, like we said, Anna is actually the only one who refuses the challenge, which means 4 out of 5 of them do complete their challenges and they win all this $12,000. Towards the end of the episode, then we've got the fire pit. Uh, I I realized something in this final section that I'll talk about now, actually. Um, Something that's come up in previous seasons of the Traitors is the question of whether or not the players should be told when a recruitment is taking place. So it's something that in Australia season 1, some of the players brought up when I interviewed them on the podcast. They said that when towards the end of Australia season 1, there's a recruitment and the faithful aren't told about it, so they have no idea that there's an extra traitor in the mix. It's again, spoiler alert, it's when Kate gets recruited. The other players aren't told there was a recruitment that night. The players in hindsight felt that was a little bit unfair because they just then they had no idea. They already didn't really know how many traitors there were, but this made it even more difficult for them to know how many traitors there were. And so I've always also thought, yeah, that is unfair. That's not fair on the faithful. However, I realised when I was watching the finale of Traitors New Zealand, actually, I can see why they don't tell them when there's a traitor recruited, because you end up in this scenario, which is kind of what happens in the finale here. If the faithful know, if the faithful have got a really, really good idea of how many traitors there are, it actually makes the end of the game not work properly. So the end of the game is the players have to decide when to stop voting. And if they know how many traitors there are, they'll just keep voting. If they know there are 2 traitors left, we've only found one, we are 100% sure there's another one, so we're going to just... That's what will happen. So you won't get a scenario when they just go, no, we're happy, we think we're all faithful, hooray, we've won. So I don't know if this makes sense. You actually need the faithful to not know how many traitors there are so that they keep potentially voting or not voting to finish the game. So they can't know how many there are.
I mean, I think this batch was off because they just seem to know this game really well. It's like they must have studied Australia, and again, I don't know whether they got our versions, but they must have studied that because they seem to just know how it all works. Even when I think Colin got recruited, it felt like there was a part of them that was a bit unsure at times.
Yeah,
And it's like they would have, I think they would have known regardless, because if Colin hadn't have been recruited, I think they'd have known Brooke would have been it. And then it's like, yeah, they're almost going to have to change this entire, again, I feel the show's always going to have to change certain bits as time goes on, because for people watching it and going in, if you've got New Zealand players, they're going to be like that. Shit, they're going to know everything.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to have to throw them off. But when you watched Australia with Camille, they did that a bit differently. They never recruited. She wasn't given a life or death situation.
Yeah.
And that was something I thought, because again, Kieran has it, I think Hardy has it, Collins has it.
Yeah.
But Australia didn't have it, maybe because Sam's doing the job for them, so they didn't really need to do it because they were still there. But I do think maybe, like you say, I want to see a season where there's 5 or 6 traces.
From the get-go, you mean?
Either from the get-go or just recruit people in the middle, even if people haven't gone. You've got that lesser waiting. But so say all of them had lasted in New Zealand. Because what happens if all of them last all the way through and you've got this like life or death thing? Is someone going to come in as a 5th tracer?
Well, I mean, Australia season 2 basically ended up with like 3 traitors and 1 faithful. R.I.P. Sarah.
That was just cruel. And she was lucky to get there. But I think when you think about this season, like say Lauren, the radio guy, Robbie, Dan, Brooke, and Colin, there's 6. What happens if these are recruited Colin with that and made 6 traces in the van? Because they both suddenly said there's either 6 to 3.
Mm-hmm.
So I almost think in a way, maybe put it up 7 faithful, 7 traces. I'd rather see it change a bit and make it more exciting for the viewers.
Yeah,
because if you have New Zealand players like the way they are, the next season's just going to be as knocking them all down like bowling pins.
Yeah, it could be interesting to start the game with a lot more. They'd have to tell them that. They'd have to say, because as it is, they always tell them there are between 3 and 5. It could be really interesting if they start a season by saying there could be any number of traitors and just leave it at that. And they could imagine they started with 10 traitors and 10 faithful.
I mean, the only downfall is you'd need about 40 players.
Well, that's true, yeah, because they just...
Because if you had 25...
They'd murder them all. Yeah, all the faithfuls would be murdered by like 4 episodes in.
I think maybe for an All-Stars, the way Drag Race Season 1's a bit maybe for an All-Stars, they do make it like 50 of the biggest contestants that this show has seen, and literally 10 of them get chose. And they
Yeah.
change it round how they do banishments and mazes.
That would be probably insane,
Amazing.
like amazing, but wild and probably unfilmable. Like you can't film 50 people. Although they did that show on Netflix, Physical 100, and that had 100
Yeah.
contestants, and that was amazing. So hey, yes, like we've alluded to, Colin is banished at the banishment room, at the round table, and we end up at the fire pit with the final four. And again, like we've spoken about, the the remaining players are so sure that there is still a traitor left, and I still don't know how. I don't know why they're so sure about that. They're because again, they didn't know at the start of the game how many traitors there were. As far
So,
as they're concerned, they've already banished five traitors. So I don't know why they're so sure there's still another traitor left. So my note just says, "Poor Julia." That's the next thing that I've written. Like it's a shame. Like I know you can say this for any series. She gets this far, but this far as a faithful, only to be kicked out right at the end game. I really felt so sorry for her, and she seemed to take it really well. Like she just sort of was smiled, and she didn't seem angry or anything like that. So I thought she was a good player, a good sport. But I felt really bad for her to get eliminated at this point. The thing is, after this is when I realized I had all these thoughts about, wait a minute, this is why they don't tell them if there's a recruit. But what I realized is Julia, so they banish Julia. She says, I'm a faithful, off she goes. And you can tell as a viewer, they're just going to keep going now. They're just going to keep going and going and going until because they're so convinced there's a traitor left, which sort of made me think, oh, right, they're going to find Brooke then. It sort of made me realize what was about to happen,
yeah.
and then also questioned, well, wait a minute, what happens? What if they voted out Anna next, and Anna left, and then there was only two people? I thought, well, what the hell would happen then? However, the host Paul actually does tell us what happens when there are two left. Well, basically, we know what happens, right? They get rid of Brooke. They find him. He's a traitor. Off he goes. And Anna and Sam are the last two players. And Paul, the host, tells us there are only two of you left, which means the game ends. So that kind of answered my question. I thought, oh, right, if you get down to two players, the game just automatically ends. And if you happen to be stuck with a traitor, then the traitor takes all the money and off they go. But yeah, my overarching thought at this point was, oh, Brooke's screwed. Like if you're left as the final traitor and the faithful are convinced there's a traitor left, you've not really got much of a chance unless you somehow survive to the final two and then the game just ends. I know that's all very complicated. But I just got the impression Brooke knows he's not going to last here. Like Brooke must see the writing on the wall. He knows, shit, they know there's still a traitor. Anna and Sam seem to get on really well. He must have known they were going to vote out him. But you had some thoughts on the fire pit. So what did you think of this?
I have massive thoughts. I almost think as well, get rid of the banishment table of the final five, do the final five, it's 5 hits.
So
Like, I don't get why the round table's there.
Yeah, it's kind of it does feel funny to do two big things in one episode, to have like a banishment in the banishment room and then go to the fire pit. Yeah, I see what you mean.
I'd
Why
rather
not
than
just
just
do
go
the
to the
fire
fire
pit?
pit. If there's more people. And to me, I think change the rules a bit because if Anna and Sam were there, but say they were there and Brooke's there, stay where. There's more of them than there is Stingy. If it was just when Alex and Craig were there, Craig was massively lost. There wasn't a chance for Craig to win, so why should Brooke have the chance to win if he's the last chance there?
Mm-hmm.
This is where the rules need to kind of be a bit more sorted out, a bit more rehashed, because it does feel it's very confusing when you think about it. You start giving yourself a headache thinking the logistics just off so in the Traitors' favour. It's unbelievable. And I know you said that in the past, we've said that ourselves. The traitors literally have more chance of winning this than anyone.
Yeah.
Because if they were continuing that with 2 of them and it would Brook, I'm like, no, it should have ended.
Yeah.
He shouldn't have had a chance because he's overpowered by true faithfuls. But I also wish when Julia and I'm just thinking that's mom's name, Julia and
Anna?
Colin went, I think they should sit on a chair. I don't think they should leave. I think they should sit there and watch the rest of it unfold. Because I'd want to see their reactions to the whole thing because it feels a bit down when everyone's gone. And then, like, could you imagine in Australia if you had them all sitting on the chair to stand on that water in there? Like, I just think sending them off is just a shame.
Yeah, it's funny you say that actually because someone, I can't remember who, I'm really sorry, it was either a co-host or somebody sent me a message on Instagram and made this really interesting suggestion. Someone said, what might be great? Actually, I know who it was. So it was someone I work with made a suggestion and said, what if after somebody got banished, and you know how sometimes they show them in the car leaving the hotel? Not always, but sometimes they show that.
Mhm.
It could be really fun if they get them in the car and they're doing their exit interview and they hand them an envelope and they say, here's who the traitors are. And they get to open up and they find out who the traitors were. Because then you would get to see the reaction going, oh my God, I can't believe it was them. I can't believe I didn't know. So that actually could be quite fun to see the banished players finding out who the traitors were.
It would. The only thing that worries me now is I wonder if, because we've said a few times, could they do something where they bring them back?
Yeah, so that would eliminate that
Because
possibility. There's also a problem. What I've realized is, and I've also mentioned a few times on the podcast, oh, maybe you could get banished or murdered players back in the game. Actually, that will never work. You would have to fundamentally change the game because when a player leaves the traitors, everybody finds out what their status was. So if somebody's murdered, that means they were a faithful. So you know for 100% they were a faithful. When someone's banished, they have to say, I'm a faithful or I'm a traitor. So every time somebody leaves this game, the rest of the players know 100% if they're a traitor or a faithful. So they can't then come back into the game because everybody knows what they are, unless you bring people back and their status could have changed. So you could imagine someone leaves, they were a faithful, but they come back and they're told, now you're a traitor, and the players they could do something like that, I guess. I wanted to just talk a little bit about Sam finally. Sam seems like a lovely guy, great player. Well, great player and somewhat great person is what I should say. I don't actually think he was that great a player all the time. I think he was really fooled by some of the traitors. What I found the most interesting thing about Sam is that it's strange. All the other players, well, all the other faithful, they just unanimously agree that Sam's a 100% faithful. Like they never question him throughout the series, or if they do, we never see it on camera. So they just all seem to are like, well, yeah, it's just they just universally accept Sam's a faithful. Sam's obviously a faithful. There's no way he's a traitor. And I don't think he ever had a vote all season in banishment. No one ever put his name down. And I thought, it just struck me. I thought, isn't it strange how every now and then in the traitors, you get a player who's just universally sort of loved and universally believed. So I think my other equivalents would be probably Andrea in the UK. Angel Andrea. I think she probably did get 1 or 2 votes, but generally the other players just seem to never even seriously question that she was a traitor.
I think she had 1 vote. I think Sam's actually the first. I think first probably ever. He's never had his name mentioned in that room.
Yeah.
In any of the English speaking, I don't think there's 1. Even Alex's name came up by case in the end.
I think if there were others, they all left really early on. So I could think of do you remember Paul in season 2 of Australia? So he was the guy who'd been attacked by a shark.
Yes.
He was murdered really early on in the game, but I think he also just everybody warmed to him and just assumed he was thoroughly honest and was 100% faithful, and they've never. And actually, I think that's why he was murdered, because the traitors thought he's never going to get banished. Everyone loves him.
Yeah.
So it just made me think, isn't it really interesting that sometimes you get a player who everyone just completely believes is a faithful and they don't even question it? And I wonder, what was it about Sam that made him have that effect on people?
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, before I forget to say this, Anna was lucky to get there because they were going to either murder Julia or Anna.
That's
and
true.
One of them was one that Shields. And you said that in, I think, one of the Australian episodes, like, what happens if you went for someone who had the shields? They did in this, and she survives.
Yeah, and the way it plays out is sort of actually quite undramatic. Like, she just shows up at breakfast the next day, and it's like, oh, you just showed
And you know
up.
what was weird? She should have thought Brooks a traitor because as soon as I walk through the door, he's shitting himself as I'm here because he's thinking, oh my God, she's alive. There's 5 people left. And she didn't pick up on that. So I was like, I don't think, again, it's interesting when you see players with strong-minded people and you'll agree with them. But as soon as them big players like Brody and that are gone and you're on your own, you're almost having to just mold yourself to everyone else. So I actually don't think, other than Julia, who I think was probably the strongest because she'd been accused the most out of the 3 of them, I kind of think, other than Sam, any of them was the ones.
Yeah. My final note on Sam is that he does this really funny thing at the end when it's him and Anna who are left, and they have to reveal whether they're a faithful or a traitor. And he does this dramatic pause before he says that he's a faithful, which just kind of made me laugh. I just thought that was really fun of him to do that. I loved the ending, even though I kind of felt it was a bit predictable. It was just very sweet. I really loved seeing how happy Anna and Sam were. They seemed to be really good friends. It was just a lovely moment. So I felt quite satisfied at the end of the season.
It was interesting when they revealed because she says, I never doubted you for a moment. And there was a bit of meat when I think he said, but I actually doubted you a little bit.
He did.
And she's like, what? And he's like, and it was like, after watching Australia and having heart palpitations most of the time, I was like, I'm glad this is a bit predictable. We've got a happy ending of people that have worked really hard. Because I would say out of the English speaking, this was the most hardest working Traitors I've ever seen. Like they would have went, I mean, yeah, they went a bit like all over the place and stuff like that, but they got it right. From Australia, it was a breath of fresh air.
Our final few minutes probably on New Zealand, I just wanted to devote to the host. Paul Henry hosts the show. The people listening to the podcast can't see, but Joe's making a face that tells me everything I need to know about his thoughts on Paul. I found Paul a bit of a non-entity as a host. I didn't get the impression that there was any on camera. There was no real interaction with the players. Everything was completely 100% scripted. He was playing a character, and the character is quite cold and serious and mysterious. But as a viewer, I had no reason to warm to him. And maybe I'm not supposed to warm to the host. Maybe that's not the function of the host on this show. But by the end, I thought, oh, I don't really care about you. And I don't feel like I've gotten to know you. And I do think that makes a difference, actually, because like a Traitors Australia, right? Obviously, I'm in love with Roger Corser. But I feel like by the end of the season, he's had his dad jokes and his silly quips that he makes and his funny lines, and I get the impression the players really like him and they like smile and cheer when Roger walks in. And of course, Claudia in UK is Claudia. She breaks character so often because she just wants them to do so well. So she's cheering them on and screaming during the missions. But Alan is a bit more like Paul, I think, like very, very much treating it as like an acting role. But he's such a good actor and he's so dramatic and over the top. It's really funny to watch Alan. But Paul, I just thought you just kind of seem like a miserable old man. I don't know why you've been chosen for this. I don't care about you. What do you think about Paul?
Where to start? Not likable in slices. Spoke to the contestants at times when I thought this feels personal. Like there's times he was belittling them, and I'm like, you're meant to be helping them. Like I didn't even think he was on anyone's side. I almost think are you because, like you say, are we meant to like the host? But I think of this. I think of Coach Trip with Brendan, one of the likable hosts. And people like that. And he just wasn't because they're the people that are kind of narrating it for us. They're meant to be guiding us through it and helping. And I didn't feel. I mean, if I wasn't anything thingy, I think he owns a wine business. So to me, it's like he came across like an alcoholic because all he had was a glass of wine in his hands. Again, he's not an alcoholic. He's probably an okay person, whatever your beliefs are, that's fine. But to me, he came across like Patsy and Eddie needs his face because all he had was a glass of wine. He just didn't, and the cane, and because he's not an actor, see this thing with Alan Cumming. Alan Cumming's an actor, we know what we perceive, he's a nice person. This guy almost felt like he was just playing himself.
Yeah.
And it was like, this, you're only here, a bit like Naomi Norton on Drag Race UK, you're only here because you work for our network, and we've probably got no one else to pick from. So I hope he gets recasted to do season two. I mean, do you think this could get a season two in fairness?
Uh, I have no idea. I I'm stumped. It's funny because I think before on the podcast, I think on the finale episode for Australia, I was casting a bit of doubt on another series of Traitors Australia. Actually, I think there probably will be a third season of Traitors Australia now. New Zealand, I just have no impression of how it's been received over there. I really don't know how well it's done, if people are talking about it much. So it's completely up in the air to me. I've got no intuition either way.
I think if they do, like I said, put select civilians in it, maybe minus celebrities and make the prize funds a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they won that much between them. How much did Sam and Anna win between them in the end?
This is
Probably
the
the
kind of
least
thing
amount.
that I should have written down, and I haven't. But the least for, well, actually, you think about no UK
UK was split
Traitors.
between
There
three,
were
wasn't it?
three winners, but that was
Yeah,
a lot more money between them. But yeah, probably
yeah.
not a huge amount compared to other reality shows and
Mm.
reality
I
franchises.
mean, isn't Sam and Anna's a TV presenter? Isn't Sam a comedian?
Sam, he's in the public eye somehow. I
So they were
actually can't
both
remember.
basically celebs that won.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I
They
noticed that.
were, and did you notice with Paul when Sam had done that mission? And I didn't have to take it, and he went, Sam did brilliant, and he's blind. I'm like, that made me feel really uncomfortable. As someone with blindness, I was a bit like, right. I'm like, because I watched that and I was like, I actually wanted it. He just said that. Because I'm like, that's something you just don't say. And again, he doesn't know him well enough to be judging it, and it makes me think even more slightable. And I was like, I can't believe that made the edit.
Yeah, I don't know if I've never been to New Zealand. I've never been to Australia. I get maybe just culturally they have a much sharper sense of humor. Like I don't know if maybe they just have a harsher sense of humor and get away with more. And
I
I don't
mean,
know.
the Australians can be quite cutting, but I kind of don't think they bring someone's like that was almost like going, oh, he's like, I suppose you could look at it in a way and go, he's blind. Look at what he's done that the people who could see couldn't do. But is there any trials from this that you bring into the UK one?
Oh yes, I like the kidnap idea. I like
Aye.
that they took two of them away very mysteriously, and they didn't know where they were, and the other players genuinely have to find that. They did a sort of a pretty poor version of this in Australia season 2 with Sarah and Hannah just chained up in like a weird house, and they could see the others through some slats.
I suppose it was a bit different because the other three had been well, apparently nurses, haven't they? It was a bit like putting yourself up for death row, really, this one. That's kind of what I liked about it as well. It was a bit different on the death row. It might have, I mean, we wouldn't have got our iconic red breakfast in our version if we had that as well. But I think it is, and I like the dark room one where they had to do the timer. That was interesting.
Oh yeah, yeah, that was.
Colin made me laugh. He's used to dark rooms.
That was funny. I like that mission because it made me. I've said this before, but I quite like missions when you can imagine yourself doing it. Like you can really think, how would I be good at this? Sometimes with the missions, if they're quite big scale, I find it quite difficult to imagine myself in that situation. But with the counting up to how long do they have to count? 10 minutes, 13
I think it
minutes?
was 15 minutes, 15 minutes.
I could sort of think, oh, I wonder if I'd be really good at this. I think I would be good at just sometimes a small scale mission that you can think I could try that myself. I want to put myself to the test. I actually quite like that.
I think the jump scares were interesting as well. That has been the bit I would not have liked being in a dark room made and like these random jump.
So I think we've covered most of our key points on Traitors New Zealand. However, we still have a lot to talk about because we have Traitors Australia season 2. We've talked about a lot about it already, but you were on an episode fairly early on in that podcast season, so be good to get your thoughts on what happened since then. We're going to talk a bit about Traitors US season 2 cast, which has just been announced, and Traitors Canada cast and promo videos and images that have been revealed. First of all, let's talk a little bit about Australia season 2. So, remind me, Joe, you were on an episode of The Trader to talk about that. What episode did you cover with me?
2.
Episode 2, so quite far back. Since then, what were your overall thoughts of the season? Did you end up enjoying it by the end? You're probably going to talk about Sam.
Yeah, and I've never been so angry in my entire life at sexual instance. Like, what more did he need? Like, they were told Annabelle did a complete 180 on me, and I was fully back on her. And Luke were just amazing. I think Hannibal, to me, has got the best outline that someone's ever had before. Gavin, that isn't stupid with the job or anything. It was just solid. And it was brilliant. And I think the ending was just, it's such a shame that they didn't even tease that on the next time because I think in Australia would have known what was going to happen. I think people would tune in to see it. That's never been done on. I don't know whether it's ever been done in any, to be honest, but like the Golden Balls thing I love. So again, for anyone that's not in the UK, it was a game show that's 38 years ago, but it was a very similar concept. I actually would have preferred if they'd have all done it at the same time rather than doing one after, rather than just go 1, 2, 3, bang. I think Sarah being told they were all traitors, that was like, as much as she played it, probably the most sickest of anything someone play a game. Again, she was one of my favourite contestants, but that was just like, yeah, why not just start? And again, why didn't Camille go, look, I was recruiters? And again, because they're probably thinking, oh, she's been it from the beginning. But then, because I think they'll forget Roger told them because, well, they forget how to play the game after time. But it was a good season. I've never felt so sick watching every episode, thinking he's gone. And the editor made it so clever. But then sadly, he stayed. But then I think Camille, in my opinion, I think I said Camille in my episode, she was in a list of women.
You did.
I think she basically won the game because she shoved it. No, it was good. I think it became frustrating watching it because you think all these people have fantastic jobs and they're letting us know how good they are. And I'm like, you're not that good because if I was your boss or patient, or not patient, but clients have said is that like I'm going somewhere else because you come across more unhinged than me. Um, and it's like, and then you've got Paul being like, I'm from the FBI, and some job you did because you were just, he was hot. He was my, he was, the way he spoke to one about was disgusting. I've never seen such a pair. And it's almost like, you see, I think going in watching that show, I'd be terrified to speak first. Because why is a woman who's very passionate and defending themselves seen as aggressive? Because I did that about 3 times in that show. Ash was defensive and aggressive and mean. I'm like, why she's someone's talk behind the back. I don't think I'd be very happy either. Annabelle, probably the sweetest out of them. Aggressive, mean, not seeing the sides here. I think you're a traitor. But on what evidence? Give me why. There almost needs to be a rule where you, like Coach Trip, you can't just go because you voted for me the night before. I'm giving you the thingy. That actually got banished in Coach Trip in the end because it was so always used. So maybe in this, maybe stop with the whole you being defensive and that. Because at the end of the day, if someone criticised, not Colin, what's that old man that's in like
Keith.
Keith, that's like Keith, the wish version of Craig. Like, I would like it if someone belittles his career and went, well, you're not a good police officer then because you're doing shit there. Don't think he's been too pleased.
No, I think you're right. The women in Traitors Australia season 2 were kind of as in life, were damned if they did, damned if they didn't. So if they were very vocal in the banishment room and tried to give really like impassioned pleas about why they were faithful, or just tried to really point out very strongly, here's why I think somebody's a traitor, everyone just turned on them and was sort of like, well, you're too aggressive and defensive, so we're going to get rid of you. Or, on the other hand, if like poor Gloria, they were actually just very calm and quiet, they also got the same treatment. So Gloria ends up banished at the end for being too quiet. So as a woman in that game, you were just kind of screwed.
Even Paul Simone, even she, in the end, when she wasn't even, she was on most people's side, be like, oh, you're aggressive and that. And I'm like, what's that from the fact that she's a wrestler or just because you're. For me, it was more they're scared that the women are more clever around them. That's how I felt.
Like you say, a lot of people agree that Camille didn't technically win, but has sort of come out as, in inverted commas, the winner. She seems to have like the backing of the viewers, and just in terms of storyline, it was such a justified ending that even though she didn't win money, she kind of stopped the, again in inverted commas, the villain of the show from taking the money as well.
Well, I'd even say villains because I don't think Blake was that good. I think he came out a bit not nice in the end of times. Like the votes he done, like again, like he voted for Ash as well, and I'm like, that was your perfect year to vote for Sam. And it's just like you're not any better because you're in that male. You're being too, and he used that a few. I think he voted for Annabelle as well. And did he vote for Simone? I can't remember. But again, that's always one thing I'll give Gloria. As much as she thinks she always went with Blake.
Yeah.
I always think you've got to have a set of balls. If everyone's going for one person, and you still go for that one person. Yeah, it may get you mates, it may even get you recruiters, but stand by your morals. I don't know why I'm saying it like I've been contestants and given people like points. I've never been in it. But it's just, I do think for women, it's getting more where people are starting to just think, yeah, these women are more gobby, so they must be defensive and that. And it's like, no, because men do it and no one has them.
Yeah.
The men's is in on the New Zealand one and no one bats an eyelid.
Yeah, I love Joe. I love how your final thoughts on it. Season 2 of Australia is just you reading everyone to filth.
Sorry.
No, here for it. So we're going to move on and talk a little bit about casting because we've had some announcements about casts of US season 2, which I was really surprised at already because it's not even filmed yet. I think probably there were some leaks and online people were figuring out who was going off to film, so they thought we might as well just officially release who the cast are. And we're going to talk a little bit about the cast of Traitors Canada. We have Traitors UK as, if it hasn't finished filming already, it's pretty much wrapping up any day now. we don't really know anything about the cast. Well, I know a little bit about the cast. They're not doing celebrities in the UK. It's just like normal civilians. Although I think you will know one of the contestants. They're not a celebrity, but I can't really explain this. I'll tell you off recording. So let's talk a bit about US season 2 cast. First of all, Alan Cumming is back. Alan's back. I saw something on X, and I don't know if this was a wind up, that Alan's dog is going to be on the show. Did you see this?
No, I didn't.
So there's
But it wouldn't surprise me if it was.
yeah, there's a post saying Alan will be back with his dog when whatever the name of the dog is, I can't remember. And I don't know if it's a joke, but it is certainly a post on X. Let's go through the cast. Now, I'm going to admit right now, I don't know most of the cast members. In fact, I think I know one, maybe two of them, because it's a full cast of celebrities or reality TV personalities. And I'm not really that familiar with all of these American shows, except one. So I'll go through them in the order I have here. I've got Karsten Bergerson, or Bergie, from Love Island, USA. Joe, at any point, if you know any of these people, feel free to jump in and tell me what you know. We've got Chris Tamborello, or CT, from The Challenge. I know that The Challenge is like reality competition-ish game show type thing in the States. Haven't seen it. We've got Dan Giesling from Big Brother. Deontay Wilder from something called Boxer. I don't even know what that is. We've got Ekin-Su Kulchuloglu from Love Island UK. You think you spoke to me about this person? I don't even watch Love Island UK, never mind Love Island US. Do you know anything about Ekin-Su?
So I know the name because I think she's become like a star from that show. But like the way the one who does Below a Pile and got her name, she was from Love Island too. So she's almost become like bigger than the show. Yeah. So I know the name through that, and I'm like, but interesting. Why is the UK person on the US franchise?
It's quite odd. Actually, I suppose I do understand. I know that Love Island UK has a pretty big following in the States, even though they have their own Love Island. I think a lot of Americans really like the UK version, just in the way that they love Great British Bake Off. And they do have their own American version, but many Americans, they love the UK original Bake Off and they watch it on Netflix. So I think Love Island UK has a big following there too, and therefore lots of Americans probably know her as well. Mm-hmm. Next, we've got Janelle from Big Brother. We've got Johnny, another contestant from The Challenge. This is the first time I've actually read this list properly. Am I going mad? John Bercow is like is an MP, a UK MP. What the hell's going on?
What a random person. Like, that's the equivalent of Boris Johnson having on there.
I do know who he is. I'm just looking up. The thing is, I glanced at this cast list earlier and immediately just thought, I don't know any of these people. So I didn't read it properly. I'm just now noticing his name in the middle of this. What the hell is going on? This is bizarre. Apart from a British MP, we've got Kevin Kreider from Bling Empire. So he must be an actor. Is that right?
Bling Empire, to me, it sounds like one of them stars reality shows. I could be wrong. But it does sound more like the shows like, let me have a look. It sounds like one of them American reality shows that a lot of...
Yes. Bling Empire is an American reality television series released on Netflix. The series focuses on the lives of wealthy, materialistic East and Southeast Asian Americans, socialites based in the Los Angeles area. It's like real-life Crazy Rich Asians, apparently, according to Wikipedia. In case people are wondering... Wow, Matthew really hasn't done any research for this podcast. This cast list was released like literally a couple of hours ago, right before we started recording. That's why
I would say it released 10 minutes before I started this. I literally got it within then, and I was like, "What's John Baker? John Baker being on here is the most." I'll get onto him in a minute once you've done that because I have a lot of thoughts.
We've got a Real Housewife of Miami, Larsa Pippen. her name is familiar to me, but I don't watch the Real Housewives
Yeah.
franchises. We've got a basketball player, Marcus Jordan, and when I first read this, I thought it said Michael Jordan, and I was like, oh my God, how have they got Michael Jordan on this? And then I read it properly. We have, I'm guessing, a dancer from Dancing with the Stars. Their name is Maxim. I'm going to try and pronounce his surname. It looks sort of like Eastern European. Chimerkovsky. Maxim Chimerkovsky, Dancing with the Stars. We've got someone from Shaz of Sunset. I know the show. I don't actually watch it. They're called Mercedes Javid or MJ. We've got a Survivor contestant, Parvati Shallow. Then we've got the one person who I know, and it's Peppermint, who is a drag queen from RuPaul's Drag Race, who is really, really, really talented, really funny, has gone on to have a really great career after the show. So it's really cool to see a Drag Race contestant in there. We've got Peter Weber from The Bachelor, who I'm guessing was The Bachelor. A little bit like Ari from season 1. We've got Phaedra Parks. I do know this person, just purely from social media. It says here married to medicine, but I have a feeling that Phaedra might be known for other things as well. Sandra Diaz Twine from Survivor, Cherie Whitfield from The Real Housewives of Atlanta. We're almost there. Tamra Judge from The Real Housewives of Orange County. And last but not least, Trishelle Canatella from Real World Las Vegas. Joe, who do you know? What are your thoughts on them?
Yeah, I know of Ethan Sue through Love Island. Again, why the hell is John Baker in this? Like, that's not a reality show. And what worries me is, are they starting to turn bring the tides and bring it into our version?
I suppose the only thing I can think of is they film it in the UK, they film it in the Scottish castle. So maybe they just thought, well, we're in Scotland, we've got a Scottish host, it's Alan. Let's just get another British person because that'll be quite fun for the Americans. And I suppose they've got the Love Island woman, so she's British as well.
But that makes sense because she's from a reality show, whereas he's a
he's like
this could literally, his career's already nearly been destroyed because why so much he says. But it's like, one, they're not exactly in the UK, like, just make it clear because a lot of people don't get it. There's two forms. There's the Conservative, which are evil, a bit like the way in America Trump is seen, and Labour is for us. So, and he is a Conservative, so it doesn't exactly warm my heart when I'm thinking the Conservative MP will go in there.
I mean, he's not. We should say he's not an MP anymore, so he's a former MP.
Oh, is he not anymore? Sorry.
But still.
But yeah, it doesn't exactly make me think the most trustworthy person about the trade. But it is interesting how they've got the same shows again. Like, obviously, they've got the Real Housewives. They've got more people from different areas, so that'll be interesting because they must know of each other. I think Peppermint will be fantastic. I hope I don't go in liking and she comes across mean in it. That's my fear of all these shows. When you know someone in your life and you think, don't get the edit that I hope you get because I like Peppermint. I'd often say she should have won that cycle. It makes me think they're going to put more drag queens in the future because with Canada they're doing it. So is this more something we're going to see? So look else in there. I don't know anyone else, no, but it is interesting. I'm glad they're all celebrities because it knocks that barrier down of unfairness to the T. And like stab each other in the back easily, and I will be obsessed. But yeah, it's an interesting cast. I mean, maybe John Kerr thinking he could have swapped an attack after us, and as it's 40 years old, it would have been nice to see any of their actors in the show afterwards between a target representation for Scotland. Because we're the Scottish people.
Here, they should get me on it.
Oh, yeah. Keely.
What are they waiting for?
Podcast host of Faithful for the Traitor.
One day they're going to be like, do you know what would be really funny if we got someone who's obsessed with the Traitor? Well, they did it with Annabelle. Let's get a super fan. Let's get the guy that does a Traitors podcast on the show.
And what a missed opportunity for this not to have Tiffany Pollard and Gemma Collins.
Oh, don't even. That's what a dream. Imagine Imagine
Why isn't Tiffany Pollard on this list?
New York and the GC reunited. I would,
Oh, so
if I
good.
wasn't already watching, I would be glued. Can you imagine the viewing figures?
But I think she would do. I think if they did a UK version with celebrities at some point, I think Pollard would go on that one. I don't think Gemma Collins would fit in with the States.
Imagine imagine Gemma and New York were the traitors together, and that so they had to work together. You know that they'd turn on each other instantly.
Oh, that's double bluff. Tiffany Pollard, Gemma Collins, and Stephanie Davis. Doing the whole, I'll give you a clue. Just get in the cage.
In case anyone doesn't know, these three were on the most epic series of Celebrity Big Brother in the UK ever, whose the memes and gifs still are going strong to this day. To reunite those contestants would just
Will be iconic.
David is dead.
And Daniela Westbrook there being away.
Oh dear. So,
but yeah, it'd be interesting to watch. And do you ever think Traitors will get rid of someone because they don't like someone? Because there's something we've not seen yet.
well, do you mean will they vote out someone they don't like?
Yeah, because they've never done that yet. It's always been strategic.
I think they have done that. Australia season 1, Matt Micallef, he was obsessed with Teresa, and he kept every single time.
No. I meant a traitor murdering in the little hut. They've never done a traitor where they'd murder someone in the night. That was through banishment because he was just driving everyone, including me, nuts.
Do you mean the traitors murder someone just because they don't like them? Yeah,
because they don't like someone. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, that could be quite funny, actually. We don't think this player's a threat, but we can't stand them. Let's get them out.
I'd rather someone be honest and just go, look. But I think in this version, I think you might see it.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me, actually, with this group of reality stars.
Is there anyone you're seeing as a winner on this season?
It's tough because, again, I really don't know them. But I'm telling you right now, I want Peppermint to win. I don't care who anyone else is. Peppermint for the win. So let's move on to talk a little bit about Traitors Canada. Traitors Canada will begin very soon. Starts on October the 2nd. We can talk a little bit about the cast, but also I just wanted to mention the promotional visuals for Traitors Canada. So on social media, Traitors Canada have been really promoting quite well, I would say. They've released lots of little kind of like reels on Instagram, little clips. They've now released these sort of clips where they show the cast and you can see the cast names. So all of this visual stuff has been put out already, and it's the most fascinating thing about it is the atmosphere, the aesthetic, the look that they've gone for. It already looks like they've kind of styled it differently from previous versions of the Traitors that I've seen. So if you go onto the Traitors Canada Instagram page, look at their videos, look at the visuals they've presented, they're trying to give 70s horror film. Like it's this, they're releasing lots of sort of grainy footage, creepy music, actually not lots of shots of people, just lots of shots of the house where they filmed it. I don't know where in Canada they filmed this. So they've created this aesthetic of some sort of ghost story, paranormal horror film, which I'm here for. I think it looks really cool. I think I love the aesthetic of Traitors UK and US, where it's a big grand mansion and it's like a murder mystery. But I think it's really cool that Canada have taken a slightly different approach and they're treating it as actually what it makes me think of as American Horror Story. It reminds me of some, not for all seasons because they change it every time, but like for the original American Horror Story, which was just like this sort of murder house, this haunted house, it makes me think of that. What do you think of these visuals that you can see for Traitors Canada?
Do you know when I'm watching that little trailer where they're on the boat and then they walk up? It's actually giving me a vibe of, because I've not seen them, I know American Horror Story, it's giving me that vibe, but it's giving me like an abandoned university or school. and she's the headmistress. Because
Yo,
she's dressed
yes.
very authority figure.
Yes, the host.
Um,
The host, Karine Vanasse, who's an actress, yeah, we've seen images of her now, and you're right. She does look like a sort of headmistress or something like that.
it's either like a headmistress or like a hospital nurse from like the 1970s, from
Yeah,
like
it's
the not
cool.
1970s, the 1600s. Like that, like very, I love it, I think. And I also want to say this is probably the most ethnically diverse cast I've seen, which I
Yeah,
am here for.
yeah, excellent. In fact, let's go through the cast. So again, we have a mix of celebrities and non-celebrities. So I'm going to talk about each one of them briefly. We've got Colin Johnson, who's a transit operator. Um, someone with the best name I have ever seen. Her name is Crystal Mays. I hope to God that's her real name, and it's her surname is spelled Mayes, but it must be pronounced Mays. Crystal Mays is a nurse. I swear to God, if I was in hospital and a nurse came over to me and said, "Hi, I'm Crystal Mays," I would just assume I had concussion or I was high on some sort of drug. I'm here for it. Right, Crystal Maze for the win. We've got Dominic. I think it's Dominic, not Dominique. Dominic, who works in project management. So I'm guessing that's not one of the celebrities. Oh my goodness, they've done it again. Donna Hart is a psychic medium. They've really cottoned on to the fact that casting a clairvoyant or a psychic makes for excellent TV. So I can't wait to see Donna. Uh,
Mm.
Erica Kasupanen is a winner of Survivor season 41. Mind blowing. So there we go. We've got a celebrity right there, and it looks like she's got quite a big following on social media. We've got Gurleen Mann, and Gurleen is also a reality star from a series called Farming for Love.
Sorry, I just couldn't imagine that working in this country. I think it's just, I think he tries it and fails.
I don't know why I'm laughing. I'm laughing just at the name of the show. So Gurleen apparently is a third generation farmer, which I'm guessing is why she was on a show called Farming for Love. Also, by the way, the I'm saying she, um, on the cast list, they've released all of the contestants' pronouns, which I think is really cool of them. Uh, Next, we've got Gurpiar, and Gurpiar is a pediatric registered nurse. It's giving Sari. We've got a couple of nurses. We've got Kevin. Kevin is a Big Brother Canada winner and apparently a champion poker player, so he's presumably quite well known. Next, we've got Kuzi. Kuzi is also a Big Brother contestant, Big Brother Canada, season 11, and Miss World Zimbabwe, and a 911 operator. So Kuzi's doing it all. She's got everything going on. She's got everything cornered. We've got Leroy. Leroy's a firefighter. We've got May or Mai. I'm not sure how to pronounce
I'd
that.
say Mai. I'd say
Mai.
Mai.
Mai is an entrepreneur, but is also one of I guess, the celebrities because they've been on MasterChef Canada. Next, we've got Mary. Mary's a Twitch streamer. So does that count as a celebrity, do we think?
I mean, I could say it depends what people's definition of celeb is. To
Yeah.
me, it's just a good income job if you get to the top, but it's for everyone to marry, you're always going to have somebody who struggles.
Yeah, but it depends. As Mary could be a Twitch streamer with 10 followers, or Mary could have 2 million followers. So we'll find out a little bit more about her. Next, we've got two Melissas. So we have Melissa Alder, and Melissa is a teacher. And then we've got a really interesting contestant because we've got Melissa Best. Melissa is a realtor. So they'll be known in the show as Melissa A and Melissa B. And Melissa B immediately makes me think, oh my God, it's Mel B. Like you could shorten it even further, and we've got Mel B. And Melissa, I can tell you already, Melissa is a big fan of the Traitors podcast. So I spoke to, and I think I can say this now because the cast list is official. I spoke to Melissa months ago online about just talking about the podcast and about the show. And I sort of got the impression something interesting was going on with Melissa. And now I realise Melissa is actually a contestant on Traitors Canada. So that's really cool. She'll definitely be on the podcast at some point. Next up, we've got Mickey Henry. Mickey is a contestant from The Amazing Race Canada. In fact, won The Amazing Race Canada. We've got Mike, who is a magician and a mentalist, which is a really cool occupation. A mentalist, I guess, is kind of like Darren Brown in the UK, like does sort of mind reading tricks on stage and sort of maybe fake hypnosis or maybe real hypnosis. I'm not sure.
Him in the cycle will be fun.
Oh, I can't wait. I guess Mike probably counts as one of the celebrities as well. I'm not sure.
Probably.
Next up, apart from Melissa B, is the next person who I do definitely know. And this is a Canada's Drag Race contestant called Miss Fiercelicious. And when I heard the name, I didn't instantly recognize who it was. But when I saw images, I remembered seeing Miss Fiercelicious on the show because she did really, really well. I think got to like the top 3 or 4 of Canada's Drag Race season 3.
It was top 5 or 4, or 3 could be either.
And from memory, Miss Fiercelicious almost went home really early in the season, and it looked like it wasn't going to do that well, and then ended up really turning it around with like really amazing looks on the runway, and surprised everybody by getting further and further and further. So that's cool to see her there. Next, we've got a doctor, Dr. Nazilla, who is a dentist, dentist/doctor of dental surgery. Isn't a doctor of dental surgery just the same thing as a dentist? I don't know. Next up, we've got someone called Rick, who is a former a VJ, radio host, TV personality. We've got Travon. Travon is a public relations specialist. And I think Travon is the final contestant as far as I can see. Joe, do you know any of these contestants?
Well, her name is Fiercelicious. And let me have a look on who else do I know. I haven't got a clue about any of the others. Again, I think that's always what's interesting about these is because for us, we don't really know many of them unless there's someone on an international like Drag Race or something. But I always think that's fun because you're learning about them and we're getting to know their worlds. Even the people that I'd say are just the everyday people, they're almost going to get something out of this.
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll get fame in that. Again, because I've got the picture in front of me, so I'm actually looking at them. But yeah, very diverse.
I want to see Crystal Maze go far purely because I love her name.
But no, I think Fiercelicious, I do wonder if she's going to do drag for all of these thingies because she's in a drag in the boot.
Yes, that's a good question. Miss Fiercelicious is in drag in the promo stuff. I wonder if Peppermint and Miss Fiercelicious will be in drag the whole time. That's a lot of work because drag takes hours to prepare. To have to do that, I mean, I'm sure they'll probably do it every day anyway for their jobs. So maybe they're used to it and they did it on Drag Race. But I wouldn't be surprised if they're not always in drag. Like maybe I can see them only getting in drag for Banishment Room, but for challenges, maybe they won't bother.
Because I thought she was in the promo picture, Miss Fiercelicious, because I remember saying to my friends about her lips have gone down. And I'm thinking that's another contestant now that's in the picture. I don't know why I thought it was there.
So that's kind of a roundup, I think, of everything that's going on with Traitors. We were almost at the end then. Before we finish up our game of the Traitor, Joe, can you tell us a little bit about where we can find you online, what you're up to, what should we be checking out?
So I am doing a mod for a wrestling booking game. I'm doing my own fictional world, so I'm making these characters and bringing them to life and giving them somewhat of a deadpan behind the eyes. But this a lot of time. I think I've sent you some of the work I've done.
Yeah.
It can take 3 to 4 hours just to do one bottle. But yeah, I've just been doing that. So if you're into booking games, it's called Pro Wrestling Sim, and I've got 2 mods that I'm working. Well, the Ace First is more important because I'm putting it together more. But yeah.
Fantastic. So we are going to conclude our own banishment because we've been playing the Trader Traitor. Joe, you're giving me some really interesting facial expressions. Did you tell me a lie?
Do you know what? I think I did, but I think I've forgotten it. I think so.
As soon as I mentioned the game, you looked really panic stricken.
I'm like shit myself because I'm like, oh my god, I
Right.
forgot. But I was thinking to say it at the beginning and I've just forgot. I'm hoping the one thing you say actually is no.
Right.
Oh,
What we'll do is I told you a lie. So that's definite. I lied to you. I have some guesses of things that you might have lied about. So if worst comes to worst, I'll just go through my whole list and you can tell me if they were true or not. Do you have any guesses what I lied to you about?
no. It's been that long and I've enjoyed it that much. Was it something to do with one of the challenges they did in New Zealand?
No, it wasn't.
No.
Okay, I'm going to reveal. I told a little fib not that long ago, quite recently. We were talking about casts in US and Canada, and I made up a little bit of a story for you. I said, "Oh, there's no UK season 2 cast list, but I know someone who's on the cast." And I pretended that you would know them too, and that I would tell you once we'd stopped. I completely invented all of that. I don't know anyone who's on the cast. I don't know anything about
Do you know what? Well done, because the only reason I believed you and I was like, the only reason I thought it could be true is I thought because other shows are doing it, it would not surprise me if we start slowly bringing in. I mean, I'm not saying for this season, but wouldn't surprise me if you start bringing lower names celebs in and then building it up. So that's why I was like, but well done. The one time you and I'm stumped because I didn't know. No, I didn't. I think I might have, but the one I mentioned, I was meant to, I brought the subject up and then I didn't run with it. Because now I know what it was, what it was.
So I'm going to tell you 5 things that I wrote down, and I now have a feeling that every single one of them was true. So you can just confirm that. You said really early on that the $70,000 in Traitors New Zealand was the equivalent of £33,000. Was that correct?
True.
Okay. You mentioned that Lauren was a dancer from Dancing with the Stars, New Zealand. Is that true?
True. Okay,
You said something about the psychic who was in Traitors New Zealand who got eliminated really early on, and you said she actually pointed out who she thought the traitors were, and she was really accurate. Was that true?
I think that was true. Yeah.
Okay, 2 more. You said you said that you were blessed by a Thai monk. Was that a lie?
That's true.
And lastly, the only other guess I had was that you said that on Dracula, sometimes contestants get tattoos. Was that a lie?
True.
So, does this mean you didn't tell a lie?
No, I forgot. My lie would have been Paul was the guest judge on Dracula, the host of New Zealand. Because I think he would have fitted right in with the judging style. And I'm raging forgot.
I think that means that if you didn't lie, then I didn't lose the game. So I'm going to take that as a win that I created an environment in which you felt unable to lie, and therefore somehow that makes me really good at the game.
You just lose track of time. I just loved it. It was like just full of, do you know, and it's weird. I don't know whether people feel this when they're doing it, but you forget you're doing an episode of the podcast.
Well, that's a good sign then, because that means that we were just
it is,
having
but I'm
fun.
scared because some stuff I've said, like, I'm really scared of, like, not I've said anything bad, but you do think I don't want to be sort of off the record. I'm like, shit.
Joe, that's the magic of editing, and that's what I'm here for. It was so good to talk to you today all about Traitors New Zealand. We had so many thoughts, so much to talk about, as well as all of our Aussie recap and our US season 2 cast and our Canada cast. I hope you've had a good time.
Oh, it's been brilliant. Thank you so much for having me
Excellent.
on. And again, I hope everyone enjoys this week.
Yes, I'm sure they will. And I'm sure you'll be back on the podcast again in the future. And I'll talk to you soon anyway. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.
Hello, faithful Trader listeners. Thanks so much for joining Joe and me for our Traitors New Zealand recap, amongst other things. It's the New Zealand Plus episode. Next for the Trader is again some interviews with the Australia Season 2 contestants, hopefully. Again, organising that seems to be a little trickier this season since Channel 10 are being a little bit stricter with contestant press activity. They're on the way though because I have already manifested it to be so. Beyond that, the Trader will be covering the Traitors Canada. I've hinted at this before a little, and I'm still going to be a bit cagey about details for now, but all will be revealed pretty soon. So, all in all, more Traitors content is on the way imminently. I want to give a shout out to Trader listener Nadia from Germany. Hi Nadia. She sent me a lovely email and recommended a couple of Korean shows that have Traitors-esque elements. One is called The Genius, and the second, The Devil's Plan. And The Devil's Plan is coming to Netflix UK really soon, so I'm definitely going to watch that after I checked out the trailer. It looks great. It's giving Squid Games, and of course, Squid Games itself is also getting its own Netflix reality show version with the biggest prize fund ever awarded on a TV show, $4.56 million. I'm assuming that's US dollars. As for The Genius, Nadia gave me a little description, so it makes sense to read that to you. She says it's a Korean competition show about who is the smartest of a bunch of Korean celebrities and non-celebrities. Though only one can win, most of the games involve forming alliances and betraying them in order to succeed. They shot the episodes on only one day a week, so comments and reactions from the viewers trickle into the show. That sounds really cool. Thank you, Nadia, for the recommendations. Those definitely sound like Traitors fans would love them. Before I go, it would be amazing if you took a little visit to my Ko-fi page. That's ko-fi. I research, write, record, edit, deal with the distribution of the podcast completely by myself. I organise guests and operate the social media accounts. And although I absolutely love the Traitors and recording the podcast is so much fun, I'm not such a fan of the amount of hours it all takes. And I'm doing it all for free. In fact, it's costing me money for things like Zoom Pro and the audio editing software I use. So if you've been listening in and you want me to keep it up, have a think about visiting ko-fi.com/Matthew Keeley. I'll spell that, ko-fi.com. I think you know how to spell that part. /MATTHEWKEELEY. That address is also in the episode description. And if you wanted to visit, you could put in a wee donation. It's not something you have to sign up to. It's not a subscription. It could just be a one-off. You can also keep up to date with the podcast on Instagram at the Trader Podcast or on X at the Trader Pod. Or you could do what Nadia did and you could email me at thetraderpodcast@gmail.com. Until the next episodes then, on their way very soon, as always, stay faithful.